Hello, history and social studies scholars. This is Miss Gooding, and I'm going to briefly talk about the major economic systems that we see in our world today. Those economic systems are command, market, and mixed. Two very, very broad categories of economic systems are the market economy and the command economy. Oftentimes, when you hear people talk about the market economy, they are talking about capitalistic economies, and the command economies are also known as communist. But do take note that no country has a pure market or command economy. A lot of them are generally mixed, and it really depends on what the values of the country are, whether they are more market or more command. To determine what kind of economic system a country has, we want to ask a few questions. So things to consider are, number one, what goods and services are produced? Number two, how should these goods and services be produced? And three, for whom should these goods and services be produced? So let's break that down for market and command economies. Market economy. So the first question, analyzing a market economy, what goods should be produced? Well, ladies and gentlemen, consumers actually decide based on how they choose to spend their money. So private businesses or companies form and they meet to really consider what consumers want and what they need and really what they're willing to spend their money on. And then based on those decisions that a private business or company makes, they then manufacture, they distribute, and it really does come down to supply and demand. So for example, if there is a group of customers who really want to buy, say, the latest cell phone, and they go out and there's a shortage of cell phones, the price is going to go up because there's more demand. However, if they go out and they say, there's, thousands of these phones available and there's too many on the market, they may still buy them, but at a cheaper price. Question number two, how should these goods be produced? The businesses get to decide. So businesses, as they come together and make plans on how to make money and how to make profits, they also compete with other companies and with the products that those companies produce. So the individual companies must find the most efficient way to produce so that they can make a profit and be successful. Question number three, for whom should these goods be produced? In a market economy, these goods can be purchased by whomever can afford these goods. So in a market economy, you guys, if you can't afford it, or you don't have the money to buy the goods that are produced, it's just too bad. And this often is the reason that people want to work, is so that they can afford nice things, right? So in a market economy, in a capitalist society, nobody is entitled to goods or services. You have to work for the things that you want. The command economy is very different from the market economy, and let's explore why. Again, that first question for a command economy, what goods to produce, is decided by the government. The government goes out and decides, what is important at this point in time, and what should we say needs to be produced for our people? And here's an example for you. Let's say that the government is deciding whether they need to spend their time and their resources on military equipment or furniture for their offices. And let's say they choose the military supplies. Okay, the government then says, let's spend our money and our time producing military items. And then the furniture itself is kind of put by the wayside because the government has decided what the priorities are. And so sometimes there will be shortages on things like furniture because of what the government decides to produce. And so that's a really distinct difference between the command economy and the market economy. In a command economy, the government decides, whereas in a market economy, the consumers decide based on what the consumers can afford. The second question, how should goods be produced? Again, in a command economy, the government decides how they should be produced? Where should they build their factories? How should they export? How should they distribute? And so the government owns the means of production in a command economy. They employ the workers, they control the industry, they set wages, and they determine schedules. And so this again is very different from the market economy. In the market economy, it was the businesses that decide. And in a command economy, it's the government who has control. Third question, for whom should these goods be produced? Well, in a command economy, the government decides who gets what and how much of that they get. So a government can decide, all right, we have a whole bunch of cell phones. We decided that this was important for people. And this group of people may get it this week, and then the next group of people will get it the following month. But everybody is going to get the same phone, all right, or a similar phone at least, to even the playing field. So all people in a command economy share equally in wealth. Everyone has their needs met. They have their basic needs met with regards to housing, food, and jobs. However, in a command economy, it's really important to note that if your basic needs are met, there's not always a huge motivating factor in order to work harder. And so in some cases, a command economy can be slower to develop and expand. So like I said before, all economic systems are mixed. It just depends on what degree. So like I said before, in a market economy, that's also known as capitalist. And then we have the command economy, which is communist, but we also have the socialist economy, which kind of lies right in the middle. And the United States is actually kind of in the middle of socialist and capitalist. So let's talk a little bit about that. Here on this continuum, we have command over on the left-hand side, which is also communist. On the right-hand side, market, which is capitalist. And again, here's the socialist right in between. All right, let's talk a little bit about socialist economic models. So in a socialist model, the government reduces the difference between rich and poor. And so ideally, it's a classless system in a lot of ways. And so oftentimes they tax. They tax the rich more than they tax the poor. And then those tax dollars go toward social programs like education, healthcare, the mail system, fire departments, etc. So again, the key industries run by the government. I just named some of them. The government helps control prices based on taxes. They provide employment, such as firefighters and teachers and things like that. And they provide those services for all people, regardless of how much those people make. Okay, so from birth to death, people get their mail. People get services in case your house is on fire. A fire department will come regardless of how much income your family makes. So again, it's these types of programs are usually based on taxes. Let's talk, now that you understand a little bit more about command and communist, socialist, and capitalist or market economies, let's talk a little bit about how they are mixed and what it looks like around the world. So a place like North Korea is much more communist than other countries. And so they have mostly only a smidge toward the capitalist or socialist, but they are almost a true communist country. You also have Cuba, which is heavily communist. Russia. China is real close to Russia. And now we're heading into more of the socialist. So you see a lot of socialist countries in Northern Europe, and they do have businesses that decide certain things, and they are based on consumers' needs and wants. But they also have the socialist programs like healthcare and education and things like that to serve their people. But they also have a higher tax bracket compared to, say, the United States. Here is where the United States falls according to this chart. And so, like I said before, the United States is largely a capitalist society, capitalist economy, because we have our businesses that are basically in control. Consumers really tell businesses what they need and what they should be spending their time making. But we also have those socialist programs that I've just talked about. We have education and fire and mail and things like that. Canada, real close to the United States. And then we have Hong Kong, which you guys is really interesting. They're very capitalist. However, they were under the rule of England for a long time. And now that they have been reabsorbed into China, it will be very interesting to see what happens with them. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit about our economic systems around the world. Thanks for listening.